here today to talk with Lesley Peters, the one, the only, about best practices on celebrating wins as a team and celebrating wins individually. Now, Lesley and I were talking before we started this webinar, and I think everybody would agree it has been a year. It has been a year. Particularly, we are in what is arguably 3 of the slowest weeks of the year for real estate every single year. Put on top of that, that we always have a tumultuous 8 weeks prior to an election. We are in the thick of it, folks. And sometimes celebrating wins can feel like more of a chore than an actual celebration. So Lesley's going to bring us a lot of really good information today, and we are going to chat on it. Feel free, for those of you that are here live with us on the session, to put questions into the chat box. We will be here happy to answer them. We will bring them up for Lesley, and we're just here to have a conversation today for the next 30 minutes. So Lesley, tell everyone a little bit about you and why this is a passionate topic for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into the real estate business in late 05, October 31st, actually. So I'm going on my 19th year, and built a team in 2008, pulled my husband into the business. I'd had a fast start, was rookie of the year. And then we had an MREA team called the Peters Company in Atlanta for 18 plus years. And that team actually was MREA for 13 years. So we grossed $1 million for the first time in 2013, and then we netted $1 million for the first time in 2018. And I feel like those years, Liz, were really pivotal in learning leadership. So building a small team, right, to a team of 25 that's netting $1 million. I learned so many lessons, and honestly, this is one of those. Today, my husband and I have 8 market centers across Georgia and the Carolinas that we love leading and leaning into every single day. So that's, I guess, our main hustle now. And real estate production will always hold a special place in our heart. But I think it's really tough because us as high D personalities who are growing a big team, right? We think everything has to be about action, right? And when we say something, we expect that our team listens and they just do it,
Wouldn't
right?
that be a miracle and a beautiful thing if that happened that way? Hey guys, we need to do this. Go. And they do it.
Absolutely. I mean, imagine telling a buyer's agent that you just hire, hey, I need you to close 36 transactions this year. Go. And then it just happens, right? Well, we know as real estate agents that sometimes there are hiccups along the way and we have to have accountability. So, one thing I learned early on about myself is I had this kind of point of kind of going to scarcity sometimes when the numbers were behind. And so if someone was behind the 8 ball, I would actually put pressure on them, and not in the most positive way, right? It's like, okay, what are you doing? It's the whole carrot versus stick analogy, right? If one of our team members isn't succeeding, they don't need the stick. Most of the time they need the carrot. So how do we celebrate wins, little wins all along the way? Camaraderie and collaboration and happy team members that actually produce. And I think that's kind of where this topic I thought about. Angela said, what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I wish I'd have celebrated wins earlier and more often.
Well, and it's such an interesting topic, especially right now, because things are difficult, right? Like if we could have done those word clouds at Mega Camp this year, what did I keep hearing? Hard, heavy, exhausted, tired. Like, let's not hide behind the curtain on that. Like, that's just what the market is today. We're doing more to get the same or less result. And sometimes that's still not getting us to where we want to be. It's not producing necessarily the result we want. And when I get on coaching calls and I talk to our KW talent members, it's how do I motivate my people? How do I build morale? Right. And it's actually a form of leadership. What Lesley's talking about here is us showing up as a leader and recognizing that while we might not be breaking a record in our business this year, right? We might not be setting any monumental record-breaking quarters. There's always a win. And I think people need that because we've got to keep going. If we feel like we're failing every single day and there's no wins, no one's going to be motivated to keep going. It deflates you. So Lesley, give us some of the examples. Now, let's say you've got a small team and you are behind goal. you're not making your numbers for the quarter, and maybe you're not even profitable. What are the things that you're going to do and look at as a leader to still keep those people moving forward in a positive manner, even when it is heavy?
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to build camaraderie amongst them, right? People want to succeed in environments that they help create. And so how can you say to your team, "Hey guys, like we have got to get our production up. We need to close, let's say 20 more units in the next 3 months. How can we come together as a team to do that?" And so then you have the team create the goal around units, and they're holding one another accountable. And then when they're binding contracts every week, you're breaking it down into small increments. And maybe it's we need to bind 2 agreements a week for the rest of the year. And so it's small, but if you can get them to start doing small chunks, then you have them create what the extrinsic motivation looks like, right? Like what prizes would you guys like? As a team, if we hit, and we always broke it down into months, Liz, because I think if you only reward in a year or a quarter, like that's really difficult. You can't create and sustain momentum.
Can't sustain that kind of energy for that kind of a time period, that kind of a focus. Like it's, you need the smaller bursts, burst after burst after burst after burst, as opposed to big.
Exactly. So for us, we broke it down by months. And so even into the week. So let one of our goals one year, I'll throw this out there, was we had to have 10 to win. Now, what does 10 to win mean? That means we had to have 10 binding agreements every single week to hit our goal at the end of the year. So what we came up with as a team is we would count down on our internal Facebook group and we would say, "Congratulations, Liz, you bound number one this week. 10 to win, right? We need 9 more." And then we would count it down. If we hit that 4 consecutive weeks, then we would have a big celebration and then we would do something fun that the team wanted to do. So certain things that they brainstormed about that we actually did was we did a cooking class. We did a movie experience, a movie team building experience where everybody chose their favorite movie. We took them to Yacht Rock to see a concert. We did spa days. We did shopping sprees. We took them to a gun range. We took them to Six Flags. So we were just constantly celebrating them. And what happened is the team started cheering each other on. So if somebody said, "Gosh, I haven't bound that many this month," then everybody else on the team was like, "We need one more. Who's got it?" Right? So bindings is a really fun thing to celebrate. However, right now it's really slow. And so, Liz, I think sometimes we can celebrate those lagging indicators like binding agreements, but sometimes we have to celebrate leading indicators. And so, what does a leading indicator look like? It may be appointments set, it could be appointments held, it may be
Could be phone calls
contacts.
made, contacts made.
So we can't hold to the same standard all year. We have to be adaptable. And if the team's not making the goal and it's been 3 months and no one's made the goal, then maybe it's the wrong goal. So let's take that to a leading indicator. But we can't forget to celebrate. And I think when the team gets behind a unified vision, that's when you really start creating wins.
Well, I think that's an important thing to look at, right? We tend to measure success by lagging indicators, closings, volume closed, GCI closed, pendings, which would be right, binding agreements. How much do we have pending? How many contracts? And yet sometimes it's, we're just not getting there. It takes months. If a shift hits us, it takes months of new activities and doubling down on activities to see the results in the lagging indicators. That could be 3 to 4 months to see that. That's a long time to go without a win. So what you said, Leslie, of sometimes it's the small things on the leading indicators, we forget sometimes to celebrate the activities. And even still, if we've got, let's imagine a team member that was off track and they were just really struggling in general, and maybe one of their big issues was they were having personal conflicts that weren't allowing them to get into the office in time for lead gen. That person showing up for 5 days for lead gen in a row on time, like that's a win to be celebrated for that person, right? Like it's not always the monumental things that are directly related to our business goals. Sometimes it's about just the successes that those individual people have.
And I think we have to remember that, Liz. I think that's such a good point because there's really extrinsic motivation for your team comes two ways. We have to reward them as a team, right? Because that's how we build camaraderie and collaboration. But we can't forget that we have to celebrate them as individuals because they each have their own goals. And just by celebrating the top agent on our team or the biggest producer on our team, there may be someone that's a mid-level producer, but is a cultural icon that really holds our team together. And we've got to realize that they're an important component about our team. So how do we celebrate on that? Um, is
Well,
when
you brought up a good point on that, right? Think about most teams, their high producers or two are their high producers, right? They're high performers or they're high performers through and through. Every month, every quarter, every year. The high producers are typically the high producers. And if the only thing we're doing is celebrating the elite high producer, everyone else is one going to get burned on that. Two, while that person knows they're good, do they really need to be celebrated every single month for the same thing? Probably not. I think that brings up some of the other areas that we can celebrate. What if it's somebody's first contract over 500,000? That, right? Like it might be their 20th contract for the year, but it's their first one that broke that price point. Or it's their first listing they ever listed when they used to be a buyer's agent, or it's their first contract ever. It doesn't always have to be the big rocks.
oh, I think that's so important. And I think that is what honestly takes leaders a long time to sometimes understand and grasp is we've got to celebrate the little wins along the way. So we did something really cool on our team back in, gosh, probably 2014, is we created an onboarding survey. So anytime a new agent or a new operations person, and by the way, this goes for operations people too, Liz, because I think so often we recognize our agents on our team because they love the bright and shiny, like they want recognition.
And they have easy performance metrics. They have easy KPIs for us to track.
Exactly. And then we don't reward our operations people who are truly the heart of our organization. So when we onboard people, we're looking, and we still do this today in all of our market centers. We're looking for this onboard checklist. So it asks a couple or it asks actually a lot of questions. It says, if I gave you $1 and you had to spend it, what would you spend it on? And people may say their favorite kind of candy, right? I mean, I don't know. The second one may be $5 and they say Starbucks. $10, they say, oh, I'd get lunch at Chick-fil-A, right? And they're writing all this down for you. And you go up to like $500. Because here's the thing, if you have some massive production number or somebody hits a huge goal, would you go spend $500 on your top producer? You
Yeah,
might. You probably would. So
yeah,
we would go from $1 to 500, and then we would ask them their favorite brand, their favorite restaurant, their favorite flavor of cake, their favorite drink, right? We wanted to know all these things. So when they hit little metrics along the way, we could celebrate them. So your transaction coordinator may have processed the highest number of transactions that they had ever processed in a month. Well, go celebrate them. If they said they love home goods, go get them a $50 home goods card and write them a note and surprise them and put it in their office. So I think there are so many moments that we have to celebrate people in order to retain and just make our teams more fun. So how can we really get to know our people on our team and how they want to be celebrated? Because Liz, if you and I just go out and buy somebody, I don't know, like an address stamper and say, congratulations. And they're like, I never write notes. Like that means nothing.
right.
So
They're like,
why
now I have to buy stamps and envelopes. What am I going to do with this?
Yeah. So why not use onboarding to ask what people like and then reward them along the way?
Well, and one of the things we talked about right before everyone hopped on was, we're looking at this and it's celebrating those wins and how do you do that? And one of the things I asked Leslie was, like, when do you find these wins? So you talked about during their 411 and their pipeline conversations.
Yeah. How do you I feel like I feel like I feel like this, oh, Liz, we can get deep here because I feel like this is where most leaders miss a massive opportunity. They say, I don't even know what to celebrate. They're losing. Well, if you think they're losing in every metric, you're probably not doing a proper 411 and a weekly call with them.
Yeah.
Because
You're not leading that person correctly at that point.
no, like if you're leading someone correctly, you're starting out every phone call. How'd you win this week? What have your challenges been this week? How can I help you where you are right now? And so I would start every call essentially the same way. And then at the end of the call, we would always go into the pipeline meeting. So we may be celebrating, oh my gosh, you went on 4 buyer consults last week and you got 3? Like, that's amazing. Like, you took 3 buyers last week. And then I may surprise them with a Starbucks card at the next meeting because they love Starbucks, right? But how do we know the little wins if we're not really holding them accountable and doing pipeline meetings, 411 and pipeline meetings every single week? And with
Well,
ops.
right. And when we look at that, the pipeline meetings, the 411s, the accountability sessions, right? You can look for those performance indicators, you can get those. Some of you are probably not natural acknowledgers of successes or wins. I fall in that category. But pointing at me, who's pointing at me? It's not our natural propensity, right? Like the high D personalities on here today, like I see you, I feel you, I understand. We're not natural celebrators of things, especially when we're down. We're looking for the next thing, we're looking for the next goal, we're looking at how to close the gap, right? We're focused on that, not celebrating the wins of what Leslie's talking about. If you find yourself as one of those people who kind of forgets, and even when you're in the pipeline conversations and you're having the accountability meetings and you're so focused on the next thing that you forget to actually celebrate it, go ahead and put yourself a calendar reminder in your week at some point in the week that just says celebrate wins. Because what it will do, right, if you turn this into a structured part of your week, it will trigger you to go back to all of your notes from your meetings and from your one-on-ones and from your pipeline conversations and go, yeah, actually, Lesley did have a huge win this week. I want to acknowledge that. And it can even be, maybe it's not a Starbucks gift card. It could even be, Lesley, I was just thinking about our conversation the other day on your pipeline, and I wanted to let you know you're crushing it on your leading indicators. Like, you have come so far from last month on your leading indicators, and we're really proud of you. It can be simple.
Yeah. I love Jeff Henderson. He's an author. Know What You're For is one of the books he wrote. What to Do Next. And I'll never forget, he said he starts every day writing 5 gratitude notes. And so for me, I started small and I was like, could I just write 5 a week? And a lot of those ended up being to team members, and it didn't have to be a gift every time. But if I saw something they were doing in their activity or culturally, or if they just took really great care of a client and I heard praise, I would immediately pick up a note and not hand it to them at the office. Like, I would actually mail it to their house. And how meaningful are little moments like that when you know your leader actually cares and notices? And so a lot of this, Liz, is just slowing down to speed up. And if you're high D, I am too. Like, maybe this is something in your calendar every week where you say, I need to celebrate 1 person a week. And who's it going to be? And you don't tell your team that. So it looks organic, but for you, you have to celebrate 1 person a week. One
Mm-hmm.
way we did this, Liz, and I think I mentioned this to you, is we had this imagine it was like a wheel. It's a wheel and it looks like Wheel of Fortune, and you take a dry erase marker and you write different prizes on all the wheels. So it may be a dollar lottery ticket. I don't know, do those still exist? It may
They
be a lot.
do. Scratchers. You can get a scratcher.
Yeah, the scratch off tickets. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to love those when I was a kid. So it may be a dollar lottery ticket, or it may be a box of chocolates, or it could be a $50 Nordstrom card. Whatever it is, there's all sorts of prizes on the wheel. Well, every Tuesday at our team meeting, we as a team would come together and vote on the 1 person, and it could be operations or agent, that had wowed us that week. So that could be they picked up a bunch of showings for a sick team member, or that could be they went on 4 buyer consults last week, or that could be a transaction coordinator that saved a deal, right? Like whatever it was, the team voted and came together, and then that person got to spin the wheel. And we, as they're spinning it, we're like, wheel of wow, and you're celebrating and
I
you're
hope
making
the whole
fun.
team said it. Did the whole team
They
say it
did.
loud?
And
Yes.
we recorded it every week and we posted it, right? It was like wheel of wow. And that's just a fun way to keep everybody engaged.
I think that's fantastic. And it's fun, right? Like
And
what
actually,
fun helps a lot too with these things. Fun makes a difference.
in fact, we were out with the Loken group in Houston a couple of years ago, and it was at their annual advance, and I surprised them with their very own will because it had made such a difference in our team. So, you guys go look at the Will of Wow. I think you can get them on Amazon.
Perfect. Perfect. And one of our viewers today, Bridget, said on here that one of the things she does to celebrate is when they do a capper lunch, as an example, right? So one-on-one with a capper lunch. And here's what I think is really cool that she said at the end of it on here, and this is a key point to note. It says, as a rainmaker, I feel I need to fill their cup, whatever that looks like, but it's up to me to know what fills each individual's cup, because it is very individualized, right? This is not a canned thing. It matters to people how you fill their cup. That's why Lesley was saying earlier of we ask them all of these questions of what their preferences are, right? And when we know people and we acknowledge them and we fill their cup, when we fill our team members' cups and they're all full, they'll hold each other up in hard times. You don't have to be the person lifting every single person up and carrying that weight as the rainmaker. If we fill the cups individually, they hold each other up in hard times. And trust me, right now, we're in a hard time. A lot of markets are going through a lot of shift. We're going through a lot of pain. We're going through a lot of heavy work to get the result we want. And that's just part of business. But we got to feel the wins. We got to feel appreciated.
And too, I think so many times as leaders we think let's just celebrate the team, and it really has to be the individual too, Liz. Like you were saying, like we have to celebrate the individual, and sometimes when we knew people were going through hard times, or we may have an agent that's just been working nonstop and hasn't had a vacation, we may send them to our condo in Hilton Head for a long weekend. And so I think that's something important to remember is you can't always just reward the team. Like sometimes they need some time with their family, or you may pick up extra tickets to a sports game or a concert and say, you know what, we're not going to go. We're just going to give those away and offer them to people on your team. So, I mean, think about our vendors. They do the same thing with us. Like our vendors will call our lenders, our tickets. And how awesome do you feel when you get Jacksonville Jaguar tickets, Liz? I mean, you get so excited, and
I get
it's
so excited to watch another Jaguar loss,
oh,
but I do get excited. I
you
do.
do get excited to get
I still
invited
enjoy it.
to something special, right? And so, how are we creating special moments for our people? I think that's really important.
And it's a huge thing, right? And we can't just throw a pizza party every week and think that's going to work. But the more we pour into people and we celebrate the wins, and it's the personal wins and the performance wins, even if it's not the lagging indicators, it's the leading indicators, it keeps us going for the next step, right? That keeps us going. I think it's also important to note there that you kind of got to celebrate some of those wins for yourself too. There's not always somebody that's going to be above you that's going to celebrate them for you. You've got to acknowledge when you've got some wins too.
Yes. We
All right.
always think of ourselves last.
Yeah. Yeah. Lesley, we are down to our final wire. Any last words of wisdom or moral of the story you would like to give people before we sign off for the day?
Let's bring back the fun. Like real estate's been hard the last couple of years. We're on track to what? Sell only 3.8, 3.9 this year across the country. Like your team members probably aren't having as much fun as they were. And so it's our job as leaders to bring the fun back. Let's make it fun again, and let's celebrate the tiniest wins and create momentum so we can go thrive in 2025.
Love it. All right. Thank you all for being here today. Leslie, as always, thank you for your time. You are fantastic. And I know
Thank
that
you,
this brought a
Liz.
lot to folks. So I hope all of you that are here today watching, whether you are on Facebook, you are on the webinar, or you are watching this recording later on, remember to celebrate the small wins in your team individually and as a whole. Both of those things matter in moving the business forward, because when we do that, everybody will hold each other up on the team through the hard times for those wins. So thank you again. We will see you all next month on our next expert interview. Have a great day.